Good morning, everybody, and welcome to, that was loud. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to an episode of Ask Me Anything. This is where I just sit and I take any kind of question from you out in the audience. As you are watching this today on Facebook, if you have a question of your own, please do feel free to go ahead and add questions in the comments section of the post, and I'll be happy to try and get to those. I'm going to get to as many questions as I can. I have received a bunch of messages also via email, so I'll try to get through all of them. If I didn't get to your question, I will hang on to them and try to get to them at another time, but let's see how much we can get through. So I'm going to start with an email that I received. And the email, it comes from Jennifer, and she says, if I were a client asking for your help to choose a place to travel, what questions would you ask me to help me find the right fit? And then her second question is, I like to travel to places where I can stay for a week with no set agenda except to absorb the atmosphere. How would you suggest that I do my research and find such places? So actually, your second question answered your first question. So how would I talk to you about how finding the right fit for a destination and for a trip? So the easy way to do that actually is just to start talking about what your goals are. So when you are thinking about organizing a trip, you need to think about how it is that you want to spend your time. What are you interested in? Are you interested in art? Are you interested in food? Are you interested in foreign languages? Because that's going to depend on whether you go to a country that speaks a different language. So you have to ask kind of a variety of questions about yourself. What are you interested in doing and seeing? And then once you get through those questions, then it's really easy to kind of start to narrow down what the focus might be and how long you should stay in a place. And also the question of, how would you find a place where you're going to do like a staycation? And that's going to depend on the thing you want to do. So for example, if you are interested in France, you're interested in food, I actually would suggest a place like Lyon, which is like known as a food capital. And then you could kind of create an itinerary around going and experiencing food, going out to see a cheese farm and things like this, So that's really the best way, I think, to create a good itinerary, is to kind of think about the things that interest you the most and then start doing your research from there. And then you can tailor a trip to your specific interests. Some other questions here. Let's see. Question: after I made my deposit on my Ireland. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's a more specific one. First time international travel and first adventures with Sarah, traveler tips and advice. What about airfare, insurance, money to bring, and luggage or personal item for carry-on only? So airfare, I've had this question several times from people. What are good strategies for airfares? I actually have a whole video on that. If you go to YouTube and you look for Ask Me Anything, I think it is. I did one just specifically on airfares. The best way to look for airfares is to just start browsing. Just make it your hobby to browse for airfares. I think there's a few different ways to think about airfares. First of all, I think about airfares in terms of my loyalty programs because I'm extremely tall and I don't want to pay for first class or premium select or one of these. And so going on an airline where I have some status helps me to get the free upgrades. So that's my strategy, is I'm looking for that. I'm looking for that more than I'm looking for the cheapest possible ticket. The problem with the cheapest possible ticket is that many times it's the worst ticket. The cheapest possible ticket may take you through multiple airports. For example, my parents recently went to Ireland and they bought the cheapest possible ticket, but that meant they had to fly Seattle to Vancouver to Dublin when there was a direct flight to Dublin from Seattle. And so I think you need to weigh, when you're thinking about your strategy for finding a plane ticket, first you need to start by weighing what it is that's important to you. Is the travel time important to you? Is the number of connections important to you? Is the airline important to you? Because for me, I start with the airline because I have a loyalty to an airline. And then I look at the shortest possible connection. And sometimes I flip-flop that. Like I'm looking for tickets for Asia right now. And actually, because it takes 20 some hours to get to Thailand, I'm looking at other airlines too that I don't have any status on. I'm looking for anything that's going to shorten that trip. So it really depends on what you're looking for. I would recommend staying away from plane tickets that are super cheap, because a lot of times it's a basic economy ticket, which means you can't even guarantee you've got a seat. You have a ticket, but the first people who are bumped off of a flight are going to be the people with the cheapest ticket. So I would never recommend buying the cheapest ticket on a plane, because a lot of times that means you may not even get a seat if it's a really busy flight. So I would recommend kind of balancing all of those different interests. Think about what is the most you're willing to pay for a plane ticket. Right now I'm looking at the summer, and summer plane tickets are around $2,000, which is just insane. I'm not ready to pull the trigger on that now, though. So that's the other question. How long in advance do you want to buy a plane ticket? Personally, when I look at something and I see that it's over $2,000, I have no incentive to buy it at all, because I'm pretty sure it's going to go down. That's $2,000 for a flight just about anywhere is insane. And if you sit on it and you just kind of wait, there will be fluctuations sometimes. If you're nervous, though, here's your real hot tip for the day. If you're nervous, let's say you found a flight on Delta and it was $2,000 and you're seeing everything else is $2,500 or something like that, significantly more. You can buy that ticket and hang on to it and then keep a track on that price. Go on to Hopper or one of these other things that tracks prices. Google will do it as well. And it'll give you a ping when the price drops. You can go back to that airline and you can call them and say, I'd like a refund, please, because the ticket is cheaper now. And they will give it to you. In the same way that if you change your ticket, then you're going to have to pay more sometimes because the ticket is more. So this dynamic pricing thing can work really against you, but can also work really for you. So if you're determined to get the best ticket at the lowest price, buy it as soon as you know, and then just be on top of it. Every time that price goes down, you call the airline and you get that refund, because you can do that. So it really depends on you. I don't have time for that myself. I really don't. So what I do personally is I'll start looking about 6 to 8 months in advance and see what the price is. Sometimes, this is the hot tip about booking really early, sometimes you can do multiple combinations of classes and you'll get a really good price. For example, about 3 months before I went to Paris, the tickets were in the $2,000 range, which I thought was silly. So I started kind of playing with looking at first class, Comfort Plus, Premium Select, and on all the routes, and what price do you get? And I actually found a ticket that was in first class coming home from Paris that was the same price as the economy ticket. Because sometimes you'll find these little like flukes in the system where a first class ticket, but only one leg of it, it's not the whole way. It was just from Seattle to Paris, I got first class. The rest of it was just economy. So these are the games you have to play. You have to be willing to just sort of dink around on the airline website. I don't have a silver bullet for you, and anybody who says they do is lying, because the airlines change their rules all the time. So the important thing is to just kind of do your research, start looking around, decide what's important to you. What is the most important goal? And maybe just write those down. My goal is, my most important quality is the airline. My second most important quality is the number of connections. My third most important quality is the overall time. And the fourth most important quality is price. That's my personal hierarchy. But write that down for yourself, because that actually helps you to prioritize your thinking when you're looking at different airline deals. So that's just a little bit about airlines. We can actually do a whole session on this. Maybe we'll do that later this month, where we just talk about strategies with airlines again and kind of revisit that, especially because they do change that stuff pretty much all the time. And also, we probably should have a conversation about loyalty programs and also about how to use miles. So that's something that we'll do at a later time. Insurance is a question I've gotten a lot of questions about. And what do I think about travel insurance? And there's a few different thoughts that I have. First of all, if you're taking a tour, you definitely want to buy travel insurance, because tour companies like us, we don't have the money to refund people's, deposits if they cancel at the last minute. We've already spent the money. So that's the problem, is you can't, a lot of companies really do have to honor the policies. And almost every company that I have ever seen has a deposit that becomes at some point non-refundable. So what I would recommend is, for sure, when you buy any kind of tour, you want to go ahead and get a travel insurance policy. And sometimes they're not very expensive. There are maybe $100 or $200 on top of the price you've already paid, which is really not a lot, considering you might pay up to $5,000 or $10,000 for a trip. So that's the first thing. I do recommend it for that. Medical insurance, as far as travel goes, is also something you might want to look at even as a separate policy, because medical insurance is not going to insure the cost of your trip, but that might be something that would cover excesses and problems if you had, let's say you were airlifted. That's always the worst case scenario. So that's something else. There are apparently some companies out there that do offer yearly subscriptions to travel insurance. We'll have to do some research on that. I don't have details on that, but I do know it exists. The other thing that we do is we recommend a company called G2G. And I think if you look on my website, you can find a link for that. I'll try to find it and put it up on this video. But they are kind of like a clearinghouse of policies where you can look, and it's like a search engine for travel insurance policies. And I would probably do that. Some people have the same provider that they like every time. They like Travel Guard or Allianz or something like this. There's a lot of providers out there. But Travel Guard, I worked with for many years and they're fine. But I think I would go price competitive on this. I would just try to find the thing that suits your goals that's not terribly expensive. This is what I would probably do. Next question on this particular email is customs advice. Should I get pre-check or is there something better? Oh, yes, there is. The something better is called global entry. And that is going to cost you, I think it's about $100 and it lasts for 5 years. It is 100% worth your time to do it. It is a little time consuming if you've never done it before, because what you're going to have to do is make an appointment. You have to fill out a form at the TSA website. You submit that, and then you have to wait for an appointment. And sometimes those appointments, you can be waiting forever for these appointments. However, there's a little hack, which is if you are taking an international flight and you've already been cleared for TSA PreCheck, but you're just waiting for your interview, you can do that on the way back into town. So you can just walk up to the TSA PreCheck office at any airport, your first port of arrival, and you can go in and say, hey, I've got my application here, but I haven't done my interview. Is there anybody available? I did that to renew mine, actually. I flew into JFK and I needed to renew it. There was nobody there at the time. It was very quiet. And so I just walked up to the office and said, hey, can I renew this? And it took me 10 minutes and I renewed it. So what do you get with global entry? For your $100, you get 5 years of TSA PreCheck, which is great. And that applies even in certain places in Europe, like in France, they honor the TSA PreCheck as well in certain situations. And then you also are going to get that customs bypass. So when you get back off the airplane and you get your bag and you're about to leave, most people get into a line, like in Seattle, we get into a line, and that line is basically averages at 30 minutes. You're going to have to wait to talk to a customs agent before you can leave. It doesn't take me any time. I basically walk through, they do a biometric scan of your face. You take your bag and you walk over to a customs agent and they say, are you Sarah? Yes, I'm Sarah. Where'd you go? I went to Italy. Okay, bye. That's it. That's it. I mean, you do nothing else. It's incredibly easy. It's super fast. There's never a line. And that's by far your top choice. If you don't want to do that, if you don't have time to do that, if you don't have the money for it, I don't know, for whatever reason, if you decide not to do global entry, the other thing you can do right now for yourself to make travel so much better is you can download the mobile passport app from TSA. And that right there will save you a ton of time. I was recently standing next to a girl at SeaTac Airport. Luca, I think it was coming out of customs, and I had to sit there and wait for him to come out. And it was absolutely incredible because the girl that was standing next to me got off the same flight as me, but she didn't have global entry. She had mobile passport control. So she was standing there because her boyfriend didn't have it. And I asked, how long did it take you to get through? Because it took me 2 minutes to get through because I have global entry. And she said, oh, with mobile passport control, it took about 5 minutes. So that's your other hot tip to kind of bypass those things. If you don't want to go all out, because maybe you don't travel enough to justify global entry. If you don't do more than one international flight a year, I don't think that global entry is probably worth your time because it's money and it's an effort and all of that. The nice thing is once you do have it, the renewal process is not that big of a deal because you just resend in a form and then you have to stop by one of the desks at the airport at some point. But that would be my best way to suggest that you get through customs really easily. Interesting side note, I was interviewed on a TV show recently, and they asked me a question about why it is that SeaTac Airport has the longest wait time to get out of customs, which is just very funny to me because that airport just spent $1 billion on an arrival area, and that arrival area is so slow and it's causing so many problems. So anyway, so that's just a little bit about those. Let's move on to another email. Let's see, my question, we're planning a return trip to Salzburg, Austria, likely departing on the 3rd or 4th week of June in 2024. We've previously flown via Lufthansa into Munich and then taken the train into Salzburg. Do you recommend another airline or have a strategy with arrival into another airport? Probably, I would say your strategy is a good one. Salzburg is one of those cities that's a little bit of a slog. They do have their own airport, I believe, and I think you can fly on Austrian Airlines. Austrian Airlines flies out of almost every major airport. So that would probably be what it is. And you probably can't, I don't think that that's a Lufthansa relative. So probably what you'd have to do is go ahead and look at round trips into Frankfurt or wherever it is that you're transferring from, and see if there's a separate ticket that will take you from the Frankfurt hub to Salzburg. I'm almost 100% sure there's going to be. It might be on some awkward little airline. It could be on like a Ryanair type airline. And it's not always ideal to have a full flight that's on two different carriers. But you know what? It's worth it. I'll give you an example of why it's worth it to look at it this way. I'm looking at going to Crete in the summertime for my birthday, and I'm bringing my kids with me. And we want to go to Amsterdam on the way home. So the first ticket I looked at was $2,600 going through Amsterdam and then flying to Athens. And then you have to wait, and then you have to get another flight down to Crete. What I found, though, is we could just do a round trip in and out of Amsterdam. And for $75, I can get on a little dinky airline called Transavia, a direct flight to Crete. And it's only like 2 hours later. So almost certainly we'll make that flight. So that is a much cheaper and much more efficient way to book tickets. So don't think that trying to book with your single airline all the way to your destination is always the cheapest and the best option. Sometimes what you want to do is get yourself to a hub, get yourself to some international hub close to where you're going, and then look at Skyscanner or Google Flights and see if there's anybody who is flying a direct flight within, let's say, 2 hours after your landing at that airport. And sometimes you'll really get lucky. So that's what we're going to do. We're just getting in round trip tickets in and out of Amsterdam. And then all the flights into Crete and Greece, I'm just going to book those as individual flights on a completely separate airline. And we're going to save ourselves a ton of money doing it. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking that one. I'm going to hop on here. Just give me a second to my post and see what questions we've got. All right. Another one about airfare. What is the best time to book airfare for international travel for the best rates? So I would say anything starting about 6 to 8 months out, start looking. You can even look a year in advance, but the problem with looking that far in advance is a lot of times, not every airline will have published their routes. And so maybe there's only one airline that's going to have a flight to your destination. And so it can charge whatever it wants. But closer to the date, maybe they have found there's a lot of demand and they've added extra flights. I know at Seattle, we often will have numerous flights a day by Air France or by Delta to destinations once they find out they've got that demand. So that's why you want to wait a little bit and see what's going to happen with airfare and what the demand for the summer is going to be. So typically I book my tickets anywhere between 6 months to 2 months out. I have even booked tickets a couple weeks in advance. And sometimes you might be surprised. Like I bought my son's ticket to Paris a month out, and the 2 days before we thought about changing our departure date, and the ticket was cheaper. It was about $100 cheaper than when I had purchased it 2 months before. So, I mean, it's complete chaos. Dynamic pricing structures make it complete chaos. So it's, again, just a matter of how much time do you want to spend on this. Is your time worth that? My time is not worth that. Like I want to get it done and not think about it. But if you have lots of time and you're really interested in getting the best price and the best route, you can completely gamify it. Okay, next question. Traveling to Jordan, how safe do you feel it is? That's a great question because I actually have been in contact with our Jordanian team, and everything in Jordan apparently is kind of business as usual. They have not seen any effects from the war because the war is actually not on their border. That's Gaza, which is the seacoast, and Jordan is inland. So they don't really see any effect right now. This is sort of what Mohammed has been telling me. And Jordan, I generally would characterize it as being the Switzerland of the Middle East. So there's not a lot going on there at this time. I don't have any concern that there's going to be anything going on there currently. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. So I can't really guarantee you one way or another. But at this time, Jordan, according to my contacts there, is fine. And it's actually maybe a good time to go just because there's not a lot of people there. And I will tell you, even last year, it was crowded. I mean, travel's really picked up, and Wadi Rum and Petra are very popular. And so going there at times when there's a reason for people not to travel there, that's kind of a plus in my book. So I leave that up to you, but at this time, this is what we're hearing from our contacts on the ground. Same with Egypt. We have talked a lot to Hoda, and Hoda has said there's nothing going on in Egypt. Egypt is business as usual. And she said, actually, tourism has not really taken a hit. She said the only people that they're not seeing are Americans, as it turns out. She says people that are, people from countries all the rest of the world are traveling as usual and have not canceled their trips to Egypt. So Egypt is still busy, and that is quite a distance away from what's going on in Israel. So that's the report from our contacts on the ground. So this is not my opinion. I'm just telling you exactly what we've been told by our teams on the ground. Okay, let's continue on. Best options for intergenerational travel. Looking to do a trip with my 40-year-old, his spouse, and our 17-year-old grandson. That is such a great question. I think intergenerational travel is so cool, and I'm really excited about it. I've traveled with my parents and my son recently, and I've done family tours for years with groups, and I think it's really great. What's really going to kind of guide what you do with an intergenerational group is how able are all of those people? So let's say, for example, you're talking about young children or really elderly people. I think that cruises are great for groups like that. Cruises are a fantastic way to make sure everybody's doing something that is at their skill level. Nobody feels pressured. Everybody can do what they want, and then they can hang out together when they feel like it. So if you have big disparities in age, really elderly folk or really young folk, I would either recommend like an all-inclusive resort, like maybe Cabo San Lucas, or I would recommend a cruise, because you can't do it. You got to kind of scale your activities to the least active person in your group. That's what I would recommend. In this particular case, a 17-year-old is going to behave like an adult practically. And it sounds like the person organizing is pretty fit and young. So in that case, I think the sky's kind of the limit. What I would recommend, I do, of course, as I own a tour company, recommend a tour, because tours, again, it's not you organizing it. And I think when you have intergenerational and multi-party trips together, and some of my customers that have traveled with me for years will tell you, it's better to let somebody else be the organizer. Let somebody else, make the mistakes. Let somebody else take the heat for things that maybe don't go the way you want. Because a lot of times when you have multi-family or multi-generational groups, there can be a little bit of squabbling. There can also be, like, oh, I don't want to spend that much time with this person, or I've seen too much of them, or whatever. When you do a tour, you have everything arranged. You don't have to worry about any of it. People can go and do their own thing if they want to. I mean, I've had plenty of family groups that have traveled with me where the kids will go off and kind of do their own thing, or maybe, part of the group will go out to dinner. The other part of the group will go see a show, something like this. I mean, it is really smart when you have multi-generational groups to think about something that's already been pre-planned. What I don't recommend, because I think it doesn't end the greatest, is for you to organize everything yourself and rent a car and drive across Europe, for example. You're going to make each other crazy. I mean, I've done that before, and I had a great time doing it with a big family group and driving across Europe. But you have to be very, very good at planning, and you don't want to leave anything to chance, because this is the problem traveling with people of different ages and larger size family groups, is that any little thing that would have tripped you up as an individual is going to be exponentially more irritating and difficult, because everybody's going to react to it differently, and you're going to be worried about everybody's reactions. So I would say plan it yourself only if you are an incredibly detailed travel planner. The other thing you could do is hire a travel planner, like have a consultation with me, or you can talk to our travel agent that we have on staff and have somebody plan it for you if you want to do a more independent thing. Because this is the issue, is with multi-generational travel, you want to make sure there really is there's no losing. You want to make sure that there is always a good situation. And that's the way I would do that. So a cruise, all-inclusive resort, or a tour are going to be your very best options. We do take kids on our tours as young as probably 10 or 12. It kind of depends on the situation and the kid. But teenagers for sure are always welcome on our tours, and they absolutely have a great time. I mean, usually there's one of my kids on the tours anyway. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Sarah, will you be doing more packing and unpacking videos? Love tips for traveling light. Thanks so much. Of course, I will absolutely do more packing videos. I've just been taking a little break because I had a really busy year. So, but there is actually an archive on YouTube of all of the packing talks that I have done for the last, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years. So if you go to YouTube and you look for Adventures with Sarah or Sarah Murdoch, you're going to be able to find a YouTube channel that has dozens of packing videos, but I will be doing more packing videos. I would love to hear from you guys though about what you'd like to see me talk about though. I have been talking about rolling bags, and I will post some more information about rolling bags that we have come up with. But if there's any other kind of tips, like what you're thinking, do you want me to talk about toiletries? Do you want me to talk about electronics? Let me know the things you want to hear about. And of course, I will be happy to make more packing videos since I know you guys all really enjoy that. Oh, this is a great question. How do you read reviews on TripAdvisor or Airbnb to read between the lines? I just came back from a trip and the host is a super host, and I'm wondering what I missed. Okay, so I'm assuming by that question you mean you came back, you stayed at a super host Airbnb and it wasn't very good. Yeah, so this is the tricky thing. So first of all, you need to understand the difference between different review websites. So let's start with TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor, I don't care for, because anybody can review on TripAdvisor, whether or not you've stayed at a hotel, whether or not you have eaten at a restaurant. And as a travel journalist, I have been in cities before where owners of hotels and restaurants will say, oh, my business has gone down really, really terribly because somebody has hijacked my reviews by putting bad reviews and fake reviews. So there's a lot of fakery on TripAdvisor. So I tend not to look there. I do look at reviews on hotel websites that we know you can only get an invitation to review if you've stayed there. So like booking.com is a good one. You can look at Google. Sometimes Google will have reviews for hotels, hotels.com. So any of these kind of clearinghouse places where people book, Expedia is the same. They will have a review under there that was only by somebody who stayed there. So that's really one of the first things I do is I look at what is the most reliable source. Airbnb, I think you can only review if you've stayed there. So that's a good start. But how do you read those? That is a really good question, because the way you read them is really, really going to affect your experience, I think. So reading them, I never look at the ones that I'll look at one or two that are 5 stars, one or two, just to see what are they saying. If you see the same things mentioned over and over again, that's a good reason to be a little suspicious, because a lot of times people will game reviews. They'll say, hey, please review my place and please mention the breakfast. And they'll ask people to do that. If they kind of make a connection with the person staying there, they will actually try to prompt the guests. I've seen this before, and I know it happens, because if you look through reviews, sometimes you'll see people writing almost the exact same review. Be suspicious when you see that. The other thing I do is I like to look at the worst reviews. What were the comments? Most worst reviews are because they had a bone to pick. They felt they paid too much. They were in a bad mood. 1-star reviews are almost inevitably not valid. They're usually garbage. The ones that are the compelling ones are in the middle. The ones in the middle are usually the ones that have some grain of truth in them. And those are the ones I'm interested in reading. I love reading the 4-star ones. 4-star ones are usually really good because they'll say, hey, it was pretty good overall, but here are the things they need to fix. Because nobody's perfect. Like if you get all 5-star reviews and you're reading that, I mean, maybe they are that exceptional and that's really cool. But, always kind of look and see, make sure if it's all 5-star reviews that those reviews have not been coached, because I think sometimes they are coached. If you have a 5-star almost perfect review, super host, they have a 4.97 or something like that, and you read through and everybody has a different comment and they like things for different reason, or whatever, you can kind of start to see patterns. If you don't see a pattern and people just really like the place, it's probably really good. So that's okay. But Airbnb is just a tough one, right? Because you just never know. There's nobody out there. There's no professional organization vetting these places. And this is why guidebooks are important. This is why I was a guidebook journalist for so many years, is that people like somebody vetting. Like I'm a third party. I have no interest in whether this person is successful or not with their hotel. I can go in and look at it and say, yeah, that's a good hotel, or yeah, you can do better. So that's why I think Airbnbs are a little bit tricky. And personally, I'm more interested in staying in hotels these days because it is more honest and you can find more reliable reviews of those places when you are looking at hotels. So VRBOs and Airbnb, that is really tricky. If you are looking to rent an apartment, I have had pretty good luck looking on booking.com because there are more, I feel like there are more measures to keep travelers safe. I feel like Airbnb is maybe not always the best place to look for that stuff. But like I said, buyer beware, read all the instructions, read everything. I've stayed in some terrible Airbnbs and, so even I have had bad luck. It's kind of a crapshoot. So I would say only stay in an Airbnb or a VRBO if you have a really specific reason. The other thing to look at is maybe you're going to want to look at, instead of an Airbnb, look at renting through an agency. For example, in London, I know there's tons and tons of agencies that manage multiple apartments. And agencies like that are going to be a little bit more responsible. They're not just some like dude who has like his mother's apartment he's renting, which is a lot of times what you get on Airbnb. I think it's really nice sometimes when it's a more professional apartment. Those professionally managed apartments often are more expensive though, but sometimes I think that kind of stuff would be worth it. Okay, moving on. My husband and I are going on a mid-September cruise from Norway to the Faroe Islands and Greenland. Being from Florida, I'm a bit worried about clothes for the weather. I'm thinking base layers, long sleeves, down jacket. And we won't be outside all day, but thoughts and suggestions. Plus, we love to carry with a carry-on each. Okay, that's a great question. So you're going to a very, very cold place and you want to be able to go with a carry-on. I've done this a million times and you can totally do it. So first of all, just remember when you go places like Iceland, Greenland, the Faroe Islands, the Shetland Islands, you're not going to Paris. You're not trying to impress people. You're not trying to wear your cutest outfit. You're just there to be comfortable and warm. And that's actually the aesthetic of the people who live there. I love the way people in Iceland dress because they look like people in Seattle. They wear nice warm sweaters. They wear, active pants like hiking pants, So really, you don't have to be thinking about looking fashionable, which is great because who cares if you wear the same outfit almost your entire trip? Put together one really good, really warm outfit with many layers, and then just kind of have that be your outfit. You can dress it up a little bit differently, bring a different scarf or buy a hat or gloves while you're there, something like that. But what you really want to do is have many, many layers. Dress like an onion. That's what I learned when I was in Italy. It's come una cipolla, be like an onion. So what you want to do is have on maybe a base camisole, and then you want to have on maybe a long sleeve shirt that micro wool, the merino wool that's really fine. You can get those on Amazon or you can get those from Wool-X, I think is another place that makes them, Icebreaker, but they're very, very thin. You can get these long wool, long sleeve t-shirts, very warm, but very light. On top of that, I would probably put maybe a cashmere sweater, again, because it's warm, but it's also extremely light, and then a down coat. But the thing about down coats to look for when you're going to places like that, a lot of times down coats, especially cheaper ones, they are really light, which is great. They're very packable, but they are not waterproof at all. So what you might want to consider, depending on the time of year you're going, is if you're going to be somewhere that's cold, but also wet, you might want to bring a down jacket that's ultra light and like a cheap one, and then get a waterproof shell to put over the top of that. That's the best combination that I have found. The problem with waterproof down coats is they're very heavy. Believe me, I live in Seattle. I know this. So you don't really want that for travel. But if you get, let's say you go to Eddie Bauer and you get their cheap, I think it's called Cirrus Light, their cheapest down jacket. It folds up to nothing. And then you can also go and get yourself a super light waterproof shell. I think REI sells some really good ones that are very cheap. So that would be a good combination of things. And then maybe bring, like pants wise, I would bring maybe some tights or leggings, and then you can put jeans over the top or some other kind of pant over the top. The jeans that's a funny one because a lot of people say, oh, why would you bring jeans if you're a light packer? I like jeans. They're comfortable and they're great for cold weather. So I don't have a problem bringing them. I mean, that's a lot of weight, but you can wear them on the plane if you have to. Wear your heaviest stuff on the plane. And as far as shoes go, when I went to Iceland the last time, I brought waterproof boots, which were not light. They were pretty heavy because we were going to be doing some hiking. I just wore them on the plane, and that's not ideal. Like, I don't like wearing them on the plane, but they weren't on my back. So that's what I would recommend. Think about layers. And the other thing to realize is that like places like Iceland, Greenland, Ireland, or Shetland Islands, Ireland, you can buy stuff. So don't worry if you go to those places that you might not actually have everything you need, because most of those places will have a gear shop of some kind. There's like the iceware store in Iceland that I love buying stuff at. So every time I go to Iceland now, I actually bring less than I need because I like buying a sweater there because their sweaters are really cute. So that's what I'd recommend. Please be sure to bring gloves and a hat because that is the one thing you will need that you will forget. And in fact, I had a dream last night about forgetting to bring gloves and hat on a trip. So I think I was dreaming about your questions last night. Okay, what were your favorite Christmas markets this year? Good question. Hang on, I need a sip of coffee. There was another question similar, which is that this is the Christmas markets are kind of a fad, and are they that great? First of all, they're not a fad. These have been going on for hundreds of years that the European cities have Christmas markets. The kind of Christmas markets we're seeing now, I don't know if I'd call them a fad, but they definitely are in fashion. Paris is not known for its Christmas markets, but it had probably a dozen Christmas markets, and they were all really fun, just little huts that were selling gifts or food or whatever, and some rides and things like this. So kind of a carnival atmosphere. I thought it was an awful lot of fun. I 100% look forward to going back. I'm going to go back again next year. So I think it's a great thing to do if you've never done it before. I would say, what are the best ones? So I went to the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. And my business manager went to Vienna, Austria, Germany. And it sounds to me like the ones in Germany, Austria are kind of more well-known. They're the biggest ones, the most famous ones. However, the ones in Belgium were great. And the Belgians, they love to party. I know a lot of Belgians, they love to have fun. And I would say the Belgians probably had on that side of Europe, had absolutely the most crazy and fun ones. And what was really cool about Belgium, they're super close together. I hit 3 in one day, no problem, just by taking little quick trains that were less than an hour ride each way. So I think that's really fun. Belgium is a lot of fun to go to, and it's pretty inexpensive. So and it's not as crowded. That's the thing, is the ones in, like, say, Strasbourg or Vienna are very crowded because they're the most famous ones. You can do the most famous ones, and of course they're going to be the biggest, but I really had a good time going to the ones in Belgium. We went to one in Arras, which was in the Flemish part of France, with our group for Paris. Fantastic market. It was so cute. So I would say, when you make your choice about where you want to go for Christmas markets, what do you like in Europe? Do you like German culture? Do you like German food? Do you prefer French food? Do you prefer Flemish food? Do you prefer the atmosphere in London? Because all of those places have Christmas markets. They're not the big famous ones like London, but London for sure had them. I saw them setting them up. So that's what I would say, is rather than think about which one has the best market, what's the place you would enjoy going the most? Because you're not going to be doing the markets all day. The markets are for part of a day. You'd get super sick of them if that's all you did every day. That's why the Paris tour worked so well, because we had other activities that were unrelated to the Christmas markets during the day. And then in the evening, people could go to the Christmas markets. So I think that was a really winning strategy that I kind of did perfectly, and I didn't even realize it was absolutely perfect. So remember, you're not going to be doing Christmas markets 24 hours a day. If you did that, it would be really boring. So you want to make sure that you're in a place that has activities that are interesting enough that make it worth the trip there altogether. Okay. Let's see. I often travel solo in Europe by train and love taking cooking or art classes, city bike tours, etc. Unfortunately, some websites will not take a solo reservation, even though it will be a group activity. Any advice or recommendation? Thanks so much. Hoping to take one of your tours in the future. That's a great question. Single travelers, I'm a single traveler when I'm traveling for research. And I totally see that a lot of times. People will say you can't just book by yourself. Couple of strategies. Number one, I've had very good luck with Airbnb experiences. I don't think I've ever had a problem booking as a single on an Airbnb experience activity. And I've done a lot of them, actually. So that's not a problem. If you do see somebody, let's say it's a local guide and they're doing a walking tour, and you can't book for one because they don't want to do a walking tour for one, you can pay for two. And I did that once, actually. I was at the Acropolis, and there was a woman who was offering walking tours. And I said, oh, I'd like to do the walking tour, but I'm by myself. And she's like, oh, I won't take just one person. And I said, well, can I pay you for two? And she's like, no, I have to have a minimum of 3. And I said, how much is it a person? And she said, it's $20 per person. I said, can I give you 60 euros? And she said, okay. And actually, as it turned out, I went back to the ticket line and I asked if anybody else was interested in doing this tour with me. And we ended up putting together a little group. But that's another thing you can do if you're doing it in the moment. If it's kind of like a, impromptu thing, you can go and ask other people around. You could also even do that if you're looking for an activity that needs more than one person. Ask at the front desk of your hotel. Maybe they know of somebody else in the hotel that's by themselves who's looking for activities. I mean, it's worth asking the question. But generally speaking, I would say a lot of places are willing to go ahead and let you book, even if you have booked as a solo, but you're paying for 2 spots. I mean, again, is that fair? I don't know if fair is the right way to put it, but it's a workaround, right? Traveling as a single person has some pitfalls. I mean, like I said, I've been doing it for 20 years. I get it. So you just have to kind of be a little bit creative about that stuff. Let's see. Do you recommend visiting Tokyo Disneyland? Oh, I do. I'm going there myself. I have a private group I'm taking to Japan in April. And actually, I'm going to take some of the people in the group to Tokyo Disneyland. Disneyland's a very personal thing, right? I'm from LA. I grew up in Southern California. I love Disneyland. So yes, I'm going to Tokyo Disneyland. Would I recommend it for you? I don't know you. So I don't know. If you dig Disneyland, sure, you should totally do that. It really, really depends. Let's see. Sorry, I got to go back into our question list. 75 questions. So I'm kind of, I may not get to everybody's questions. Let's see what else have we got here. Recommendations for Cyprus. I don't actually have any recommendations for Cyprus. I haven't been to Cyprus. So I would just say be careful about Cyprus because I've heard kind of sketchy things, but it's got beautiful beaches apparently, and it's not very expensive. Let's see. Oh, this is a great question. I'm looking to travel with my husband in the United States this summer. In mid-June, we're trying to decide where to go. I'm longing to take my breath away with the mountains. We always love being near water too. We're considering Washington or Colorado. Do you have any suggestions? A quaint town or city would be beneficial too. Well, I live in Seattle. It sucks to live here 99% of the time, but when it's summertime, it's actually magnificent to be here. And that's why we all stay. Right now the weather is absolutely awful and it's been awful for weeks. But once you hit about mid to early June, things start to get better. You're going to have much more possibility of excellent weather if you come more like in July. But June is good because it usually isn't hot at that point. So yeah, Seattle is absolutely beautiful. And, you can stay anywhere in around the Seattle area and have access to the city and to the city amenities and drive in any direction for a couple of hours. You drive into the west for a couple of hours, you can be at the ocean beach. You drive to the east for 2 hours, you can be in the desert if you want to be. There's just so much to do. You can drive to Mount Rainier. You can go up and do the Paradise up there. You can hike if you're interested in hiking. Going up to Mount Rainier and actually camping there is really cool. It's hard to get a spot though. You have to reserve really far in advance. Like right now, I would reserve a camping spot if you wanted to camp on Mount Rainier, or to stay at the lodge at Paradise. That would be very cool. That's the very top of Mount Rainier. That will definitely take your breath away. But we have a whole range of mountains here, the Cascades. Like there's millions and millions of different things you could do here. As far as a cute, quaint little place to stay, we have some adorable little towns. La Conner is a really cute place that a lot of people love. That's up in the Tulip Field area. So not super convenient to some of the mountain activities, but it's really cute. We have Roslyn, which is from Northern Exposure. That's up in the mountains. And there's some really nice resorts out in that area. So yeah, Washington is the reason that we stay here is that it's a really beautiful state that has a ton of diversity. Like you really can see almost every kind of landscape just here. The Columbia River Gorge is also super beautiful. So yeah, plenty of things to do here. Go down to Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens is very interesting. Their visitor center that talks about the explosion, fascinating. It's not as beautiful as Mount Rainier, obviously, but it's really, really interesting. And if you like hiking, they have these lava tubes you can hike through. So anyway, million things to do. So of course, I live here, so I'm going to recommend that Washington State is probably your best bet. And some people are suggesting as a response to this question, the Oregon coast also, which is very beautiful. Yeah, the Oregon coast. But you can also do that from here. You can fly into Seattle, rent a car, and you could go out to the beach and you could drive south down to the Oregon coast. My parents love Lincoln City, which I mean, I'm from LA, so Oregon and Washington beaches are kind of like, but Some people love that. How far ahead do you post your upcoming trips? I usually plan over a year ahead and would love to go on one of your trips sometime, but I need to know really far ahead. I'm thinking Egypt for 2026 at present. So right now we are working on our 2025 schedule. So we're trying to get that out more than a year in advance. We're trying every year to be more proactive. So I'm hoping 2026 tours will be posted before the end of this year. I mean, let's just say getting the tours for 2025 out within the next month or two would be pretty cool. And I don't know if we'll make it, but we'll try. So we do understand a lot of people like to make plans way, way, way in advance. And it is the trend in the industry for people to start booking things earlier and earlier. The problem on our end with that is just getting pricing that's going to stick, because a lot of hotels and stuff, they don't want to tell you what their price is going to be in 2026. They're like, come back later. So it's really hard for us to price and anticipate how things are going to go. So in some tours are not possible to book that far out. However, some might be, like Egypt is one we probably could start looking at 2025, 2026 schedule. So stay tuned. We are doing our best to get those out as early as possible. So right now on the website, you have our 2024 tours through to the end of, I think, November. But we are going to do some late season editions. We're going to add at least one, if not two, Christmas time tours. We're going to put the Paris tour back on the schedule and one other one. And we haven't decided the one other. We're working on a few different ideas, but there will be another Christmas time tour and they'll probably run sequentially. So you can take both if you want. But for sure, Paris is going to be back. It's going to be in the same time slot the week before Christmas. And we'll have that on the calendar coming up. I'll probably let the people coming to my house for the party on the 19th or 20th, I'm going to let those people probably sign up first. If you made the effort to come all the way to my house, you might get to sign up for Christmas tours first. Best time of the year to visit Egypt and why? That's a great question. We only offer the Egypt tour at the time of year I think it's a good time to go. I don't think it's good to go now, even though with the weather like this, sounds like it's actually pretty enticing. And this is a very busy season. So from Thanksgiving through the end of January, it's super busy in Egypt because, of course, people are trying to escape the bad weather. I personally don't care for it because you don't get enough daylight. Because they're in the Northern Hemisphere as well. So the days are short. So what I would recommend, and this is the same advice I would give for Morocco, I really like kind of March, April. But the problem is March, April often conflicts with Ramadan. And you need to be very careful about that because a lot of restaurants are not open. You might only be able to eat at your hotel. And a lot of the staff for tours will not work during Ramadan. We do have guides that just won't work during Ramadan. So we need to kind of reorganize our tours to make sure that we're not conflicting with any of those really important holidays for our staff on the ground. So those are the considerations. That's why we end up in March. We kind of always end up in March because that avoids the Ramadan issue. May would be nice, but it's going to be warm. So it really depends. Do you like hot weather? I like hot weather, but not everybody does. And that's why I choose March. And then the fall, you have October and November, both fantastic times to go to Egypt. I think that September you could, but again, you're probably going to be there during the heat of the year. And I don't know, that's not always fun for people. So, I mean, air conditioning in Egypt is kind of, so don't expect it to be like Arizona where everything is air conditioned. So I would say going October, maybe November. If you want to combine Egypt and Jordan together, those are also the good times to go to Jordan. Would be early season, February, March, and into the fall. Jordan is really, really nice. Probably, yeah, like late September, early October. October might be the ideal time to go. But when we offer the tours, that tends to be what we kind of consider is the ideal time to go. What are your favorite beach areas in Europe? Oh boy. So as I mentioned, I am from a very beautiful beach town in Southern California called Ventura, and I'm very picky about what beaches I like because I grew up on the nicest beach in the world practically. So honestly, I don't think I've been to a lot of great beaches in Europe. Don't throw things at your screen. I don't like, okay, the Algarve, beautiful sand, lovely sand, love it. Algarve is very cool, gorgeous scenery. The water is freezing. I hate swimming there. I don't like swimming anywhere in Portugal. Portugal has freezing Atlantic water. No, thank you. I really like Sicily, obviously, but most Sicilian beaches, well, that's not true. I like Sicily. I'll say Sicily probably has the best beaches. Cefalù has a gorgeous sand beach. Italy does not have great beaches. A lot of times, especially the western side of Italy, from like the Cinque Terre area down even south to Naples, they don't have a lot of sand beaches. It's a lot of times rocks or gravel. And so I don't care for a gravel beach. It doesn't bother some people. A lot of people don't care if it's gravel. And actually in Italy, it kind of doesn't matter because they put those beach chairs out. So you can rent a beach chair and then you just have to have water shoes with you because you're going to get cut probably. And that's why I'm not super hot on that. The other side of Italy is the Adriatic side. Now that does have beautiful beaches, white sand beaches. However, the Adriatic is very shallow on that side, on the Italy side. So it's kind of, I think one of the nicest, prettiest little beaches that I would kind of even put in the category of Hawaii that I've seen was actually out in Croatia off of the island of Vis. We took a little excursion out to some little tiny micro islands off of the coast of Croatia. And there were some beautiful beaches out there and the water was absolutely clear and very beautiful. So I would probably say when you're looking for the best beaches in Europe, I would look for islands. Islands are probably going to be the best. Sardinia has some beautiful beaches. Actually, we're offering our first Sardinia tours this year. I'm hoping in 2025 to offer a Sardinia tour that I'll lead that will be during beach time because I do love beaches. But Sardinia has some of the most beautiful beaches in Europe. Sicily has some really beautiful beaches. Greece has beautiful beaches. So, but really look closely, especially when you're looking at photographs of a hotel or you're looking at, photographs of what their waterfront looks like. Because a lot of times if they have sand, it's packed. Everybody's packed on it because there's not much of it. So that's the warning, is the beaches are tricky because a lot of times in Europe, they are stones and not sand. And I don't call that a beach, not where I'm from. So good question here. When booking international flights, it's all about flights today. When booking international flights, is it best to book direct with the airlines or use a travel agent? I find it confusing to find great deals, and it seems the travel agents have better access to flights. So what you're paying for with a travel agent is expertise. Are you paying for a cheaper ticket? Not necessarily. So my thoughts about them are this. I am an expert at this and I like doing my own thing. I would never use a travel agent because I know what I want. I know how to look through everything. I know how to look for the connections I'm looking for. And the other thing I know is that if I don't see a flight exactly the way I want it, I just call the airline and I say, hey, here's what I actually want, but I can't find it. And a lot of times the actual airline people, when I call Delta directly, they will go through and they'll find me a cheaper ticket or a better route that I didn't see. So that's one way you can do it. If you are a person who likes to do stuff yourself, do it yourself. You don't need it. Nobody needs a travel agent these days. So why do we have travel agents these days? We actually now have an on-staff travel agent. And here's why. Because sometimes maybe you don't know anything about booking tickets. Maybe you don't know what the best route to go is. And also maybe you want a little help and you want somebody to kind of be in the background waiting to help you. So here's the difference of the travel agent. If you book with a travel agent, they're going to book with their software. They're going to book with their agency. Their agency does have access to tickets. The airlines do not. If you don't have status or loyalty to any airline, this might be a good route because they'll probably be able to get you a good ticket, especially if you're looking for more of the premium tickets, like the first class or the premium select tickets. So I would call them and see what they've got access to because they may have things you don't see when you look at the airlines or you look at Google or something like that. What's also nice about that is that you're buying customer support, right? So your travel agent may charge you a fee. I know the last travel agent I worked with charged, I think it was $100 per plane ticket. And that was for their time. And that's completely fair, you guys. Let me just tell you, travel agents charging $100 or something for every plane ticket that they book, worth it, because how many hours did they work with you? People don't work for free. So that's the thing. You do have to pay them and they will do work for you, which is they'll find you the best routes, they'll find you the best prices, and they will stand behind their work. And that's the nice thing, but also the bad thing. And it goes two ways. So I'll give you an example. If I were to buy a ticket on Delta tomorrow, and this did happen to me. I was sitting in the airport and my flight got canceled. It's on me. I have to figure out how I'm getting to my next destination. I went up to the counter, I talked through some options, and I know the industry really well. So I said, oh, I know you can actually book me on another flight. I want this flight, which is leaving in an hour. And they got it for me because I knew what I was talking about. You probably don't have that expertise. So if you were in that situation and you'd book through a travel agent, you just get on the phone with your travel agent and say, hey, my flight got canceled. Can you fix it? And now it's the travel agent's problem. And they're going to fix it for you. And they will. But here's the thing. Are they available? Were they there to pick up that phone call immediately? Because you need help immediately. So it really depends. You need a good travel agent who's super responsive, but that's what they're there for. You're supposed to call them and say, please rebook my flight. I want it to be this way. And they'll say, okay, I'll call you back in 10 minutes, and you go have a cocktail and you wait. That's what you're paying for. So it really depends. Somebody like me does not need a travel agent, but I think that people out there, you probably would benefit from it. But that just means you can't go directly to the airline when you're having a problem. You have to go through the travel agent almost always. So that's something to discuss with your travel agent, because maybe you want them to find the ticket, but you want to be able to manage that reservation yourself. So you have to talk to them about that and see that if that's possible. But in my experience working with travel agents, anytime I wanted to modify my ticket or if there was a problem, I had to call the travel agency, which sometimes is not convenient when they're in Seattle and I am in, I don't know, Thailand. Like, I don't want to have to wake somebody up to fix my problems. So that's the difference. But it is true that they do have access to different tickets than you do. So my advice would be this: if you are interested in working with a travel agent, call them, give them a shot, say, here's what I'm thinking. Do your research ahead of time, see what you could do. I found a ticket that's $1,600. Can you do better? They might be able to. And it's nice to give them a challenge and tell them you've already done your homework. So if you're interested in finding a travel agent, you want to work with somebody, we have somebody on staff now who is a licensed travel agent, and you can email her at dawn@adventureswithsarah.net, and she can help you out with your questions if you need to do some booking. We'll put a post up later this month announcing that as well, if you didn't quite catch that. Let's see. Another question about Christmas tours. Will we be doing the Paris and Belgium Christmas tours again next year? Absolutely. Just stay tuned. We're going to try to have those booked and ready. We're working with the hotels right now to get everything settled. I'm hoping before the end of January, we'll have those available for sale. Please keep an eye out, though, because those are going to go fast, and those are going to go to my Patreon followers first. So if you really want to go on one of those tours, it would behoove you to go to patreon.com/adventureswithsarah and become a member at the lowest level, even, because all of the Patreon members have first access to all of our tours. It's my thank you for paying my mortgage. So if you would like to have first access to those will go to the Patreon people first. Great question here that's appropriate for right now. What is appropriate clothing for Thailand? No shorts for women, no sleeveless tanks? Great question, because that's a very personal question. And I'll tell you, Thailand itself, people are very modest, actually. The first time I went, I was really surprised. I had actually brought mostly pants and, short sleeve shirts and things, but I thought, oh, people wear tank tops. No, the locals don't. Sure, tourists do. Tourists wear whatever they want. And especially on the beaches in southern Thailand, especially the Phuket area, that kind of area, anytime you're around a bunch of other tourists, yeah, they're going to wear whatever they want. They're going to wear shorts. They're going to wear tank tops. They're going to wear bikinis in public. Do Thai people dress like that? Oh, no, they do not. And in Bangkok, do people dress like that? No, they don't. So what I recommend and what I prefer personally to wear in Southeast Asia, and this is all of Southeast Asia, so we're talking Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, I would have the same advice for all of those, which is bring very, very lightweight but modest clothing. So I always bring like linen pants. I'll put on like a lightweight tank top, and then maybe like a linen shirt, lightweight shirt that goes to my wrists, so it doesn't have to go to your wrists, but I would say short sleeves. And, if you want to wear something that's not full length pants, capri pants are great. Those work really, really well. You can also find pants that kind of roll up. And that would be fine too. Or even if you want to wear shorts, just really long shorts, like look for modest shorts, like kind of Bermuda shorts, but the little butt shorts that a lot of teenage girls wear these days, that would be super inappropriate. String bikini top kind of things, not tube tops. No, like, come on. What would you wear if you were going to hang out on the beach with your grandma? Kind of more that. Go be a little bit conservative in your dress. Dresses are great. For the women that are traveling in Thailand, I love wearing like tank top dresses are okay. And I'll bring like a scarf or something. If I'm feeling like I need to be a little bit more modest, I can just put a little scarf or a little jacket over the top, but kind of big flowy dresses, like tank top dresses, those are great. So nothing too tight, nothing too revealing. It just is a little bit more conservative culture. But it's up to you. There are plenty of people who travel to Thailand and wear very revealing clothing, and that's up to you. I personally like to blend if I can. with the locals. Well, I'm never going to blend. I'm 6'2", but I try to dress respectfully. There we go. That's what I actually meant to say. Let's see. I've flown many times to EU countries. Now that I'm turning 80 years old, I need to fly more comfortably with the option to lie flat during part of the transatlantic trip. I've been searching on lots of lists, but I cannot find a reasonable price for a business class seat with lie flat seats. Where are the deals for Granny? Granny, I want to get you a deal. That is correct. You deserve it, man. And I'm not a granny, but I'm getting to the age of thinking I deserve it too. So that I gave you a hot tip before, and I'll just reiterate that tip. Start searching well in advance. Those first class and premium tickets, you can get really good deals on them, like even a year out. So start looking way out. But the real trick there is to start looking for combinations, right? So, you know, maybe you fly business class on one piece and economy part of it. So kind of choose a ticket and then change the class and see if that changes the math, because sometimes it does. The other thing is, a lot of times airlines now are auctioning off the first class seats at the last minute. In fact, this is becoming almost industry standard. So what you could do is buy yourself an economy ticket, make sure it's roomy, make sure it's got like some legroom. And then the day before the flight or a few days before the flight, see if you get any upgrade offers from the airline. I flew on South African Airlines recently, and they sent me a request about a week ahead saying, hey, would you be interested in an upgrade? Put in a bid. So I just put in the minimum bid. I think it was like $100 or $200 or something for an upgrade. I got it, and I got first class, and it was a very minimal price to be upgraded. And we got a full, beautiful meal, and it was really super nice service. The same thing has happened with KLM. This is, please don't tell everybody this. I don't want it to not work for me anymore. But when I'm flying KLM, as soon as I get to Amsterdam, whatever I'm connecting to, like I went to Johannesburg, I just went up to the service center and I said, do you have any last minute upgrades? And they said, oh yeah, we do. How much? They're like, oh, there's $700 or 25,000 miles. And I'm like, take my miles, please. So last minute upgrades are becoming a more and more common thing because the airlines just want to sell those premium seats. Some airlines, it's getting harder and harder though, like Delta, people are just buying those premium seats now. So even for people like me that have a lot of status on that airline, I often don't get upgraded because there's so many people are pre-purchasing those. But the other thing Delta does, and I don't know, I think other airlines probably do it too, they'll give you offers. Like as soon as I log in and I look at my next trip, it'll say, would you like to upgrade to first class? It's only $4,000. And I'm like, heck no. But then I'll refresh and the price will change because it's dynamic pricing. So maybe the price will go down. Maybe it'll go down to $600 or $700. And then I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. So that's what it is. It's just a game. It's a game. And you have to be willing to play the game if you want to get those good deals. If you don't have the time or patience for that, your strategy is just to look early, look as early as you can, even a year out. Try contacting a travel agent, see if they have access to better deals on those tickets. But I have heard of plenty of people getting really great business class tickets that they booked more than a year in advance. So that would be probably my best suggestion. The other thing to know, though, about the lie flat seats versus first class, those are not the same. If it says first class, they do not have lie flat seats. Business class will have a different kind of designation, and you have to look on the airline website to make sure they show the little bed, because sometimes you'll book what you think is a first class seat and you get there and it's a chair. It's not a lie flat one. Even on very long international flights I've been on before that they didn't have the lie flat seats. So just be really sure before you book that you're getting what you think you're paying for. Okay, I think we have time for one more. Let's see. I would like to know about getting to Spain and Portugal from Seattle. I figured out I can use Alaska Miles on Aer Lingus and then take Ryanair to Barcelona. I had wanted to blah, 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 blah. Okay, actually, this is a very interesting question, because somebody is bringing up the point that I had brought up before, which is that they are looking at flying from Seattle to Dublin on Aer Lingus, which is a direct flight. And this is such a cool little hack. I didn't even know it till this summer because I went to Ireland a few times this summer. From there, you can just go to the Ryanair terminal and fly basically anywhere in Europe for almost nothing. And you can get to airports that Aer Lingus doesn't serve. So for example, I flew from there to Bologna, and it was a very cheap flight. So that's a really great strategy. Buy a one-way ticket or a round trip ticket into Dublin from wherever you are. And those Aer Lingus tickets can be quite cheap. and then buy separate tickets. But then you have to make sure you've got that enough time to make that connection. And also, you know, Ryanair is super weird about bags and stuff. So you have to bring super, super light bags or pay ahead of time to check. That's the problem, is once you get to Dublin, you're going to need to start all over. You're going to need to exit the airport, come back in, go to the check-in counter, check in your bag, go through security. So it's not as simple as it sounds. So you need to build in at least 2 to 3 hours before you have your next flight, if you plan to do that. And one last question, I can't see exactly how it was worded, but I remember from reading through this stuff, is somebody was asking me about sickness right now, especially because COVID is on the upswing, it sounds like. I actually just had the flu, not COVID, but I had the flu, and I got it after I got off the plane from Paris, but I don't think I caught it on the plane. But yeah, there's a lot of sickness going around, a lot of flu, a lot of cold, coughs, things like that. What's the best way to protect yourself? It's the same thing we all know, and none of us really want to do anymore, which is wear a mask on the plane. It is what it is. An N95 mask is going to save you a lot of headache, and not just talking about COVID, because there's a million other things out there. Wash your hands all the time. I have seen lots of people get on airplanes lately who bring antiseptic wipes, and they just wipe down the screen, they wipe down their seat, they wipe down the arms of their chair. I don't blame them. I think that's not a bad idea, actually, because a lot of times these planes come in and the staff do not have enough time to clean the whole plane. So they vacuum, but they don't wipe stuff down. So I would say, to keep yourself safe, wipe stuff down if that's something that appeals to you. But the easiest way you can keep yourself from getting sick when you travel is by wearing a mask in any kind of crowded public transportation situation. Airplanes are not actually the worst culprit, actually, as it turns out, because the air systems on there are pretty good, unless you're sitting next to somebody coughing in your face, which can happen. That happened to me recently, and I was very glad I had a mask in my bag. So I would say always have an N95 mask in your carry-on bag at all times, because if you have somebody coughing next to you, yeah, grab your mask. But actually, their air systems are pretty good. I will bet you the more common places, and I'm certain this is where I got the flu, the metro. Traveling on public transportation, crowded into cars with lots and lots of different people. And some people are wearing masks, but not very many. And also, more than that, you're touching stuff, like everybody's holding onto the same handles, and gross. So really be careful when you're on public transportation. Wash your hands immediately after getting off of the subway. I don't like the hand sanitizer gel. I just go find a bathroom and use the restroom and wash my hands. That would be my biggest tip for staying healthy. Also, hydrate like crazy. Everybody gets sick when they travel, a lot of times because they get dehydrated, and that really wears you down. So drink tons of water, get lots of sleep. I know people wanted me to talk about jet lag strategies, but I think I'll make that a whole separate talk, because there's a lot to cover there. But yeah, that would be my thing. Get some sleep, stay hydrated, wear a mask when you feel that is a good idea. Look around you. Are people coughing? Are you in close quarters and there's not a lot of air? Have a mask in your pocket. That makes a lot of sense. So we just all need to kind of be watching out for each other. You know, COVID's not the only thing out there. So take care of yourselves, right? Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's edition of Ask Me Anything. I will be having another one of these probably in February. So if you didn't get your question answered today, don't worry. I'll try to save some of these ones, but then I'll put out another query sometime in February, and we can have another chat like this. And maybe I'll have a guest star. Maybe I'll have Luca or another one of my friends join us, and they can answer some questions from their point of view. I do want to thank you all for sending in these great questions and participating, and a big thank you to everybody out there in the community for continuing to support our little venture here at Adventures with Sarah. So I wish you all a very good day. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see a replay of this, you can watch it here on Facebook, and you can also see it. We'll repost it on YouTube in probably tomorrow, so you can see it as a replay there. If you want to post questions for me to answer later, you can post them in the comments on this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.